Oh, hi! This video is going to be very goofy like always, but there's a lot of seriousness sprinkled all over because there's a lot to unpack here. And if you make it till the end, there's a little surprise for you. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode. This video is brought to you by absolutely no one but the Command Sergeant Major General himself. Hello, privates. This video is going to be a little bit different because it's not going to teach you how to get big. It's going to teach you how to get smart.
You're a goddamn genius!
You need to use your brain as well. You need to work out your mind. This is going to be the first episode in a new series called Scandal Review, where we look at scandals that have happened across the globe and then rate them from 1 to 10 fully loaded Kalashnikovs. Now the first scandal we'll be unraveling will be the European tax scandal, which happened roughly from around 2007 until 2015. But more specifically, I'll be looking at the Danish tax scandal, which happened from 2012 until 2015. We're in luck because the Danish television channel Dr. One has made a couple of good documentaries on this, which is going to infuriate everyone. One of the documentaries is called This, which roughly translates into The Men Who Europe. I swear, for the entirety of watching the documentaries, I was like,
No! God, please, no!
it is truly infuriating. Now, before we delve into the scandal itself, let me just teach you a little bit about Denmark in my teaching suit. Woo! Look at that! Now, welcome to Denmark, the mighty fine country that owns a large island that Trump wants to buy. The biggest export is bacon. The biggest imports are migrants. I'm just kidding, I'm a migrant myself, actually a refugee, so it doesn't matter. I've checked that the social justice math works out. Look at this. The square root of a migrant joke times pi divided by the migrant person himself equals, that's right, absolutely nothing. More specifically, I'm a refugee from Bosnia, which means that I can make fun of Bosnians. That's how it works. Like the way that they can't spell foreign words like Facebook, look. I can also give you a couple of words in Bosnian, like this. Oh, what's that? You didn't understand it? Well, maybe it's because every second word is a curse word. I mean, for God's sake, it's almost a compliment when they tell you to go f*** yourself. Anyway, let's get back to the Danish tax system and discuss the pros and the cons that are there. There are certainly a lot of pros, right? From the moment you're born, there are so many things that are free that you just take for granted when you live here. For example, you want to go to school? Well, that's free. You want to go to college? That's free. If you can't get a job, the government's going to give you money, and that money is, you guessed it, free. When you get a job, you have 5 weeks of paid vacation.
The prophecy is true.
That's pretty crazy. You get a cavity in your tooth, that's... That's actually not free. If it happens inside your mouth, that's not free. If it anywhere else on your body, we're A-okay. Because the government will have none of it inside your mouth. That is disgusting. God damn it, that's disgusting. Oh my God. But Command Sergeant Major General, why is it not free in every country? Well, that's a very good question, Billy. That's a very good question. Because it's actually wrong to use the word free, right? Because nothing is free. We all pay for it through our taxes, which are in some cases way above 50%. Let's just look at the resulting loss of the scandal, which was 12.7 billion kroner. That is 1.7 billion euro that people have just fucking pulled out of the tax office. And let me just remind you what happens when you and I don't pay our fair share of taxes. We go behind bars, okay? And I'm not talking about these kind of bars where you can meet cute chicks and guys, okay? I'm talking about these kind of bars where you pray to dear God that you don't drop the soap.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Teacher, how did this scam even start? You've always been the brightest one, Billy. It's a good question. It all started when this German owner of a law firm, Hanno Berger, who had been counseling companies for decades on how to avoid taxes, thought that he'd found a loophole with his associates. Now, at the same time, there are some financial bankers and stockbrokers in London who have met up because they found the exact same loophole in the European tax law. Now, the loophole is actually rather simple. Whenever you get profit from a stock that you've purchased and then sold, or by the dividend of the stock, you have to pay taxes from that. So let's say you bought a stock for 1,000 kroner and you sell it for 1,500. You have to pay tax from that 500 amount. Unless you are a tax-exempt company, which some abroad pension funds are, then they'll pay you the taxes back. Now, so far so good, there's nothing illegal yet. Illegal part comes in when they create multiple companies and then make a lot of transactions between them, making it look like they all need to get tax back, even though only one company has actually paid the tax. That is the loophole. It's kind of like when you're at McDonald's and it says no refill on the soda machine. You look into your wallet and you're like, oh, I don't have any more to give, so you just take it anyway. You rebel, you. The reason these two parties needed each other, the German law firm and the financial people in London, is because the lawyers needed stockbrokers with some capital to invest with, and the stockbrokers needed the lawyers to approve all of the different transactions in the companies that they've created abroad. This guy, who they in the documentary just referred to as the insider, he's worked very closely with both parties, the German lawyers and the financial people in London. He goes in to explain that the further into the process they came, even the banks themselves got interested in the scam. What? The banks were scamming? Yeah, that's right, Billy. Even a lot of the biggest banks were interested in this. This is crazy. Due to the cooperation with the insider, we get a glimpse into the bank's involvement in the scandal. And one example was the Bank Maguire, where documents showed that they knew about this possibly being illegal by writing, "There's a risk that a criminal challenge will be made against Maguire." The higher-up's defense of this was, "Oh, we weren't really aware of what our employees were doing, but it just sucks when your name is on the email, Nicholas Moore." So naturally, he was forced to resign. He was forced to resign? Boo-hoo! Oh my god, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do now that I have to resign? What am I gonna do with all this money? Now I have to sell my favorite Porsche, the blue one. It's even cabriolet. If you have never seen a symbolic resignation before, this is the epitome of such an event. The epitome! So they put a woman in charge this time around after his resignation, who just so happened to also be CC in the mail. You couldn't fucking write this. This is a joke, right? This is a joke. Is it over there? Where are the cameras, huh? Where are the cameras? Alright, so let's revisit this title one more time. It's not just the men who... Oh, by the way, men assuming their genders? 2019, you bigot. It's not just the men who f*** Europe. It's also the banks who f*** Europe. Their involvement in this was not minuscule. The reason that the banks were even interested in the first place is because they just convinced themselves that it was legal. The insider says himself that
Heute gibt es ja noch viele Leute, namhafte Leute, Banker, Anwälte, Anleger, die sich hinstellen und sagen, was wollt ihr eigentlich? Das ist doch alles legal.
One of the genuinely baffling things to me is that they could have just stopped. At that point in 2011, they had already stolen billions. But then again, the guy who we call the insider explains a story about a guy who has 2 villas on a Spanish island, one in the north of the island and one in the south. And his explanation is,
Ja, wenn der Sommer so heiß ist, dann sind im Süden 2 Grad mehr als im Norden. Und dann gehe ich lieber in den Norden.
dude, I patch my socks back together when there's a hole. And this guy has 2 villas because of 2 degrees. Oh my god, this is really needs some circus music right now. The first time that they run into trouble is in 2011 when the German tax office withholds 462 million euros because they're suspecting some suspicious activity. This in turn then just causes them to choose other countries to do the trick on, and they can do this because no one has been warned about it. Germany, bro, stop it. So thank you, Germany, you really fucked us. What's even worse is that in 2012, they raid Hanno Berger's home and his offices in Frankfurt, and what they find there is the master plan, which is a list of countries that they knew the loophole existed in. And guess which country is on the list? Germany, what the Germany, what the fuck are you doing? I can't believe 2 chances. 2! You even had a paper with all the countries involved. Fuck! Not only did you screw us over, but it's like you screwed everyone over. It's like you had contracted chlamydia and you slept with every country in Europe and you didn't say anything. Jesus. Was machst du, Deutschland? Es ist nicht gut, okay? Es ist nicht gut. Schlechtes Deutschland.
Ist er verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt.
Admittedly, it's easy to just put the blame on someone else. Oh, it's the Germans' fault. No, it's the bank's fault. No, it's the financial people's fault. No, it's the lawyer's fault. But sometimes you have to look inwards. How could this even happen? Because how much of the blame do you put on the thief when your door isn't locked? And how locked was the Danish tax door even? Because last year I had to pay back 2,500 in taxes, so clearly there is a system. So in the documentary, they've dedicated a whole chapter called All Alone, and in this chapter they discover some of the inner workings of the Danish tax office. Like how many people were involved, what's the process, who actually did the tax refunds. So they interviewed this almost 70-year-old tax employee who's been in charge of approving all of these tax fund requests. And he said some surprising things, but the most surprising thing from the whole chapter was this.
Svend har altså i mange år siddet med tilbagebetaling af udbytteskat. Men de senere år stort set alene på grund af de mange nedskæringer i skat.
Men når vi kommer op over år 2000 i hvert fald, så har jeg siddet længe alene på opgaven.
What? There's been one guy in charge of sending billions and billions
and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions.
Isn't it funny and ironic how they want to save the taxpayers' money by having fewer employees, and then they just end up sending it abroad to anyone who makes a goddamn request? They can figure out that I have to pay 2,500 back, but they can't figure out that 12 billion are missing. Let's change this title one more time, because it's not just the men or the banks who fucked Europe. It is also because of the totally incompetent tax office who thinks it's enough to put one dude in charge of billions. And honestly, at this point, you're thinking, it can't get any worse than that. I mean, we've climaxed. But then, while I'm sitting and editing this video, another Danish TV channel called TV2 airs a two-part documentary about all of this. The three journalists you see here have uncovered a large network of people involved in the scandal operating in the United States. These people have scammed upwards of 5 billion Danish kroner. These people are lawyer Donald Donaldson, lawyer Adam LaRosa, and the supposed masterminds behind the operation, Matt Stein and Jerome Lode. They used an intricate web of their family members to create pension funds to fuel the scam, and made it look like a lot of independent pension funds were used, even though they were all behind this. The journalists even tracked down some of the people involved who were naturally not interested in commenting on the case. Let's just give some kudos to this cameraman who's running towards the Land Rover like there's a golden medal attached to it. Early upon their arrival to the States, the journalists are presented with a settlement draft from the Danish tax office to the scammers. This draft is confidential but is leaked through an insider. In this agreement, one of the clauses states that if they pay back 1.4 billion kroner back to the Danish tax office, they will not be pursued by SOIC, the state prosecutor for economic and international crime. Think about what this would mean in practice. These people would be able to travel from the United States to Denmark freely, even though they still haven't paid back billions of kroner. Remember, they scammed for upwards of 5 billion kroner, but only willing to pay back 1.4 billion. A discrepancy of up to 3.5 billion kroner. Even the Danish police had no clue about this deal the Danish tax office representatives were about to settle on. The insider says this.
They were horrified when they heard what Scott was doing.
Yeah.
And I would be very surprised if the police didn't say to SWAC, you know, this is bullshit.
Ava Smith, a Danish professor of law, even says,
Er det overhovedet lovligt?
Nej, det mener jeg sådan set ikke, det er.
Thankfully, the first draft didn't go through, but a second draft was quickly made that puts the perpetrators in a good light by stating they cooperated and acted on good faith. What's even worse is, the tax office is not even allowed to mention anything about who the perpetrators are, according to the second draft of the agreement. Alas, it was signed by the Danish tax office. In a last-ditch effort, the 3 journalists attend a press meeting where the tax office representatives are open to questions. The tax office representatives don't know is that the journalists are in possession of the settlement papers. The tax office representatives lie to the public by stating the perpetrators only scammed for 2.9 billion, even though we know that they scammed for more than 4 billion. I want you to pay attention to when one of the journalists says that he has the settlement agreement papers.
Jeg har faktisk taget hele forliget med.
Girls, if your guy looks like this when you ask him, "Did you cheat on me?" he'd be lying.
Tænk, så bliver ved med at sige 2,9 milliarder. I forliget, nu har jeg jo læst det. Der er der jo nogle andre tal, der fremgår. Der står helt tydeligt sort på hvidt. De har været involveret i udbetalinger for mindst 4,1 milliard kroner. Hvorfor siger I 2,9 milliarder? Det fremgår ikke noget sted. Der 4,1 milliard fremgår til gengæld meget tydeligt.
So they don't really answer this. They just go on to deny everything and beat around the bush here and don't really give any proper answer. But I want you to notice how attentive all the other journalists are, because when our original 3 journalists get interrupted by the female tax representative who gives the microphone to another guy, he says,
Jamen, så vil jeg gerne følge en smule op. Hvorfor har vi aldrig hørt beløbet 4,1? Hvorfor har vi hørt 2,9, som ikke indgår i aftalen?
Jamen, jeg kan ikke kommentere nærmere på det.
So after this comment, or rather lack thereof, they seem to be eager to want to end the press conference and just leave many unanswered questions. Maybe because they just signed a document with a bunch of suspects in a high-profile case, which prohibits them from discussing the details of the case any further. While the silliness in this video can soothe the anguish you might feel from the scandal, it is truly no laughing matter. I just want this number to sink in for a second. This is the amount your average Danish worker has paid. It's 12.7 billion divided by the active Danish workforce. And if it seems like I'm a little bit harsh on the Danish tax office compared to the scammers, it's because the whole Danish tax system is based on trust. We don't, and in fact can't, trust any third parties abroad, but we do trust the Danish tax system. We all contribute vast amounts to help one another and keep our welfare high, but scandals like these erode the trust completely. Especially when we know that they're lying about the settlement. I mean, what else do they lie about or keep hidden from the public? Anyway, my point is that the next time you have to pay taxes back, it might not be with a smile on your face, but rather with a lump in your throat. So thank you, privates, for watching this video. You stuck to it all the way to the end. I will leave links in the description if you want to know more about this case. And since I promised you a surprise, that sorpresa, for every like that I get on YouTube or Facebook, I will give out 1 kroner. For each comment, I will give out 5. For each share, I'll give out 10. This will last for the next 2 weeks, and then I'll make another video where I will make the donation, most likely to Charity Waters. So feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe. It's an easy way to feel good about yourself. It's cheap for you. It can be very expensive for me. Just don't empty my bank account, okay? You're not my girlfriend. Again, thank you for watching. This has been the Command Sergeant Major General, and I'm out.